The legislature will be reconvening shortly. The legislature is resuming. Senator Michaela Cavanaugh, you are recognized to speak.
Okay, thank you. Okay. I opened on this. Yes? Yes, I did. Well, welcome back. I hope people come back soon because it's just me and we're going to have to vote. So be sure and come back from dinner soon, colleagues. This is part of the when we're at ease, we don't have to check back in. And so then we start back up and not everyone's here. 3. Yeah, we don't have a quorum right now. Ooh. You know what? No, I'm not going to do it. I was going to, but that'd be mean. It'd be so mean right now to do a call to house. I'm not going to do that. Should I? Should I? Nah. No. But should I? No, I'm not going to do that. Okay. So we are on LB 254 and it is 6:02 and I don't know how much time we have left on this bill, but I'm sure I will find out at some point in time. Maybe somebody can pantomime, or actually could one of the pages go to the desk and get the time that we're going to be done on this bill. Sorry, I didn't go through the blue light process, but hopefully you can forgive me on the blue light. Sorry. I could press it and then unpress it if that counts. If there's like a mechanism for counting the number of times, I'll do it. Okay, we've officially blue lighted it. Yes, okay. He missed it, but I did hit the blue light and then I unhit the blue light. So I've gone through the proper protocols for requesting a page. I'm going to be on the mic forever. You can just tell me.
We have 2 hours left on this one, but at 7:30 we're going to move to the next bill as well.
Thank you. Okay, we have 2 hours left on this one. Thank you so much. And your shirt matches the light today, so good color coordinating. And let's see, is it Morgan that has a green shirt on for the green light? Color coordinating with our lights. The white light, Ken's got the white. I'm sorry, I don't know your name in the peach, but we're gonna go with red. The 4 of you represent the white button, the green button, the red button, and the blue button. Our 4 buttons, just sitting up there. Sorry, I just come back from dinner. I've got like food in my stomach, so I have a little bit more energy, but I am also mentally exhausted. So LB 254, we have 2 hours left on this bill, but we are going to final reading at 7:30. So we are where we are. Okay, dokie. This floor amendment, I don't remember which one this is. I'm sure it is of immense consequence, as all of my floor amendments are. And it is,
1 minute.
thank you, FA 53. Let's see here. It was initially written in my unlegible handwriting. Strike section 1, of course. Totally what I meant to do was strike section 1. What is section 1? I don't know, so probably should not vote for this amendment. Okay, I have spent a great deal of today talking about TANF, temporary assistance to needy families, and I am probably going to get back to that, but I did also spend some time talking about the actual underlying bill, LB 254, which is a bill to create a digital archive of our live streamed proceedings, our committee hearings, and our floor debate. I did speak earlier about the
That's
fact
your
that
time, Senator, and you are,
next in the queue.
this is you're in the queue. It's your last time, and then you'll have your close.
Thank you, Mr. President. Okay, so I did not do a call to the House, so people should be trickling back from dinner, but I will let you all know that I probably will do a call to the House when we get to my closing. So just putting that out there. Okay, so LB 254 is a bill to create a digital archive of our on our live stream of committee hearings and floor debate. One thing that I have suggested, and I did this through the rules debate, and I'm suggesting it again today, is that we also require the live streaming and the digital archiving of our committee briefings. So we have committee briefings from time to time, and they are streamed in the closed circuit TV, but they're only streamed online if the committee chair requests it. And sometimes that doesn't happen because the committee chair doesn't know that they had to request it. And I also wonder if we don't require that, when they are streamed online, will they be digitally archived under this bill? I'm sure that as the rules and regulations around this are promulgated, that will be taken into consideration, but I think it would be great if all of our committee briefings were streamed live and were digitized with everything else. They can be extremely helpful and informative. My first year in the legislature, we had a committee briefing in HHS on a variety of issues. We had a very new HHS committee. 4 of the 7 members were freshmen. Myself, Senator Arch, Senator Hansen, and Senator Merman. And so the chair of the committee, Senator Sarah Howard, had ensured that we were a well-informed committee, and we had numerous committee briefings. We had briefings on Medicaid. We had briefings on various Medicaid programs. We had a lot of briefings on Medicaid expansion because it had just passed at the ballot in November of the previous year, that election of 2018. And so the department was supposed to be working on Medicaid expansion rollout. And so we had a lot of briefings on that. Most of those were a little bit contentious because they were around the delaying of the rollout, which was very opposite to the wishes of the people of Nebraska who had voted for it to be rolled out by April of 2019. But we got there eventually, like 3 years later. So we had briefings on TANF, numerous briefings over the years on TANF, SNAP eligibility briefings, just a general briefing on the child, I'm going to get the department name incorrect, Child and Family Services Age Department, I think is what the DHHS department. Then developmental disabilities, we had briefings from there. Tony Green is the current director. When I started, it was Courtney Phillips. And we also did some tours of some facilities. Yeah, it was a very robust introduction to HHS. I learned a lot. And
1 minute.
then we had briefings, thank you, Mr. President. Then we had briefings around the YRTCs, the Youth Rehabilitation Treatment Oversight. And we did have those recorded. I remember this specifically because when we had the oversight committee into the YRTC, the Youth Rehabilitation Treatment Centers, when we had that oversight committee in 2020, and we were traveling to visit the various facilities, and then we were having public hearings in the communities. So we did a tour of Geneva, and then that evening we did a public hearing in Geneva. I feel like for some reason we were in a bank vault, but I could really be misremembering that. And we were at that point, we might have been in Senator Brandt's district, or we might have been in Senator Doran's district. I think the
That's
hearing.
your time,
Thank
Senator.
you.
And you're recognized to close on your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think we were in Senator Brandt's district, and we had the public hearing, and it was recorded. I remember it was recorded because we had somebody from here with a bunch of recording material, or microphones and things set up so that we could get it all recorded. So I know that public hearing for that special committee was recorded. At least the audio was recorded. I don't know if the video was recorded. And the same thing in Kearney, and we had our hearing at UNK, University of Kearney. We did not have a public hearing in Hastings. We did do a site visit to Hastings. So Hastings was the treatment facility for youth that had drug addiction, alcohol and drug addiction or use. And they were then moved to Whitehall, which is here in Lincoln. And the facility that they were in was torn down, and the facility that they were to move into, that the legislature had authorized, I think, $5 million to be built on the Hastings campus, which was intended to be for them, was then repurposed for the female youth that had been moved from Geneva to Kearney. We then moved them from Kearney to Hastings. But before we did that, after the legislature had appropriated $5 million to build the facility, and DHHS decided, without consulting with the legislature, to repurpose it for YRTC, that it then needed to be updated, even though it had never been utilized, because it was now being repurposed for a purpose that it was not initially intended for, and therefore the facilities needed some major significant reinforcements done to them so that they could serve out the new purpose of the YRTC Hastings. And we also toured the Lincoln Center, or the Lancaster Center, which was the Lancaster Youth Detention Center. We are engaged in a contract, the state is engaged in a contract with the County of Lancaster to rent out a wing of that facility for high acuity cases. And those are kids that are receiving some much needed psychiatric care. And I think, at least the last time I checked, I always stand for correction, but I think that they are seeing great results with the small numbers and the high acuity access to psychiatric care. So, it wasn't handled necessarily in the most straightforward way or the most transparent way, but we are where we are. There's some sort of, I don't know what's happening back there, but some banging of drawers. So how much time do I have, Mr. President?
1 minute, 30 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. President. All of that is to say that the recordings from those hearings are an important part of the archive of the history of the legislature. Certainly, everything that happened with the YRTCs in my first 4 years, I think, is more than just a footnote. It is an important
1 minute.
incidents and a long, long journey after that that we should always be reflective upon as we are making decisions that impact the youth that are in our care in this state. And I think that that should carry forward as well when we are talking about our child welfare system, which is an entirely additional conversation. And another special oversight committee where there were public hearings that were, again, recorded. But I don't know where those recordings live. I think maybe Nebraska Public Media houses them for us. Maybe they don't. All things I could dig in on this bill when we get to select file on it. So, Mr. President, I would like a call of the House. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Kavanaugh. There's been a request to place the House under call. The question is, shall the House go under call? All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. Record, Mr. Clerk.
11 ayes, 17 nays to go under call, Mr. President.
There's been a request for a roll call vote. The question is the adoption of FA 53. Mr. Clerk.
Senator Aguilar, Senator Albright. Voting no, Senator Arch. Voting no, Senator Armendariz. Voting no, Senator Ballard. Voting no, Senator Blood. Voting no, Senator Boston. Senator Bostar. Senator Bostoman. Voting no, Senator Brandt. Voting no, Senator Brewer. Voting no, Senator Breezy. Voting no, Senator John Kavanaugh. Not voting, Senator Michaela Kavanaugh. Not voting, Senator Clements. Senator Conrad. Senator Day. Senator DeBoer. Voting no, Senator DeKay. Voting no, Senator Dorn. Senator Dover. Voting no, Senator Duncan. Not voting, Senator Erdman. Voting no, Senator Frederickson. Senator Halloran. Voting no, Senator Hansen. Voting no, Senator Hardin. Voting no, Senator Holdcroft. Voting no, Senator Hughes. Voting no, Senator Hunt. Senator Ibach. Voting no, Senator Jacobson. Voting no, Senator Kauth. Voting no, Senator Linehan. Voting no, Senator Lippincott. Voting no, Senator Lowe. Voting no, Senator McDonald. Voting no, Senator McKinney. Not voting, Senator Moser. Voting no, Senator Merman. Voting no, Senator Raybold. Not voting, Senator Reapy. Voting no, Senator Sanders. Voting no, Senator Slama. Senator Vargas. Senator Vargas? Not voting. Senator Von Gillern?
No, Dick. Vargas voting no.
Senator Vargas voting no. Sorry, Senator. Senator Von Gillern? Voting no. Senator Walls? Senator Wayne? Senator Wishart? Voting no. Mr. President, the vote is 0 ayes, 32 nays.
The amendment is not adopted. Mr. Clerk, for items. Speaker Arch, you're recognized for an announcement.
Thank you. Fellow senators, I have had some questions about the agenda for this evening as well as for the rest of this week, so I want to give you a brief announcement. The agenda states we will go to final reading no later than 7:30 p.m. At that time, we'll have only about 40 minutes to go in order for a cloture motion to be in order on LB 254. So I've decided to alter the agenda to complete the general file debate this evening on LB 254, and following the advancement of LB 254, we'll then proceed to the final reading of LB 376. With respect to final reading, I want to point out to the freshman senators and remind other senators that during final reading, members are required by rule to remain in their seats unless we are in a motion to return to select file for a specific amendment or have returned the bill to select file and are discussing an amendment. While the bill is being read by the clerk or being voted upon, members need to be in their seats and not just in the chamber. Additionally, members must remain in their seats while the body is debating motions to recommit or reconsidering a motion to recommit. However, once we begin debating an amendment, senators may move about the chamber, the Senate lounge, when not blocked off for construction, and the connecting hallway. As long as we are not presently voting, members may go to the restroom but need to immediately return to their seat. Additionally, I'd like to take a few minutes to let the body know about the agenda, what I anticipate it will look like for the rest of the week. My first goal is to complete some additional committee priority bill packages with generally non-controversial bills. Tomorrow we'll take up the banking priority bill package, LB 92. Wednesday we will take up the business and labor priority package, LB 191. On Thursday, I plan to schedule the select file debate of the natural resources priority bill package, LB 565. Also, we have 3 bills other than LB 376, which may be read on final reading, and I plan to schedule those this week as well. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Clerk, for items.
Mr. President, the next item, Senator Michaela Cavanaugh would move to reconsider the vote on FA 53.
Senator Michaela Cavanaugh, you're recognized to speak on your motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, okay, so motion 956, floor amendment 53, AM 698. So these numbers all mean something. The motion 956 means that this is the 956th motion filed this year. That's a lot of motions. That's a lot of motions. And emotions. Okay, so I was talking about government transparency, aid to dependent children, and let's see here. The legislative history on the TANF. Whoa, I'm looking to see behind me. I'm lifting up this light and I'm hoping it's not blinding you behind me. So let me know if it does, because it's kind of blinding me a little bit, but I can't see otherwise. Okay, Legislative history of TANF Rainy Day Fund. The Nebraska Department of Health and Human Services repeated refusal to use Nebraska's Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, or TANF reserve, for its intended purposes has led to the accumulation of over $131 million. Year in and year out, advocates, including Nebraska Appleseed, have come before the Health and Human Services Committee in support of proposals to spend down the TANF reserve, also known as the TANF Rainy Day Fund. Every year, the department says that they have a plan for the funds, that a portion of the funds are already obligated, and that the legislature shouldn't get involved. The next year, it turns out that those funds that are supposedly obligated have not actually been spent, and the cycle continues, and the reserve fund grows. For example, one moment. For example, LB 89 in 2015, in the fiscal note for LB 89 in 2015, the department stated, after LB 89 is fully implemented in FY21, the Temporary Assistance to Needy Families, or TANF, block grant. What is happening back there? All right. Sorry. The relevant provision of LB 89 passed without depleting the TANF Rainy Day Fund. LB 147, 2015, Crawford Bill, similar to LB 224 in 2017. Crawford at HHS hearing. And so, in addition to the fact it didn't have a priority, my recollection is it was also the case that we were having these conversations about how to make sure that we were keeping our TANF funds sustainable. And a bill that Senator Campbell had to raise the amount we were giving to families was a higher priority, we felt, than this at that time. And so, okay, we need to make choices, and we made a choice to push that instead. More conversation about LB 89 later in the hearing. LB 224 in 2017, Crawford Bill would have removed the ADC and SNAP asset tests. ADC is Aid to Dependent Children, and SNAP is the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. DHHS opposed changing asset limits for TANF because of the, quote, agreement, end quote, that was reached on LB 89 in 2015 that raised the payment rate. In the fiscal note for LB 224 in 2017, the department stated, LB 224 results in increased aid to dependent children, ADC spending, financed out of the Federal Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, TANF, block grant. Current and projected TANF expenditures exceed the annual block grant award, resulting in TANF financed programs not being sustainable with TANF funds. Increases in ADC will quicken the exhaustion of existing TANF balances, known as rainy day funds, and will result in the need for increased general fund appropriations to finance TANF programs. Also see DHHS letter in opposition. This bill did not pass, and the TANF Rainy Day Fund continued to grow. Interestingly, an observation from myself and a concern I have about potential of creating new programs funded by TANF dollars this year is that will be a future argument against increased eligibility and payments in the aid to dependent children, because if we create programs that really require the state to an obligation, financial obligation, if we do that this year, and then we, in future years, attempt to increase the aid to dependent children, the argument will once again be made that we cannot actually use the money for what it was intended for, because what if the money that it isn't intended for is spent down on those programs, and we would have to use state general funds for that obligation. My suggestion and recommendation would be to not obligate the state to create new programs, instead to use the current TANF money for its intended purpose. But that is just a side note. LB 329 in 2019. It's a Bowles bill, and it was IPP'd. Child care subsidy bill didn't speak directly to TANF, but it sparked conversations with DHHS about using TANF. How much time do I have, Mr. President? Mr. President?
2 minutes, 50 seconds.
Thank you. LB 1049 in 2020, Bowles Child Care Subsidy Bill that expressly used TANF to pay for stuff. IPP'd. I like that, stuff. My kids would say, can you use it for a stuffy? They love a good stuffy. A stuffy is kind of same thing as a lovey. In the fiscal note for LB 1049, the department stated, all TANF carryover funds are obligated for other community services and programs. Any expenditures that are the result of LB 1049 will need to be paid with general funds. That bill did not pass. And again, the TANF rainy day fund continued to grow. LB 485. This is from 2021. Child care subsidy bill. Increased eligibility limit from 130% federal poverty limit to 185% federal poverty limit, and increased transactional CC child care subsidy from 185% to 200%. Final bill requires use of CCDBG or TANF money, no general funds. Sunset at end of FY 2023-24, which would be June 30th, 2024. Evaluations of changes report by December 2023. Estimated costs 28 to 35 million a year. Most recently in testimony at
1
the
minute.
hearing, thank you, at the hearing on LB 485 in 2021, the department stated that, quote, the TANF funding referenced in this bill is insufficient, leaving state dollars to cover the cost. DHHS is unable to support legislation that will cost millions of state dollars for implementation. We began programs in 2020 and 2021. We have a plan through FY 2025. We're adding programs each year. See Stephanie Beasley testimony. LB 485 passed and has been fully funded by federal dollars, and the TANF Rainy Day Fund has continued to grow. I think that's about it for my time. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Kavanaugh. Senator Erdman, you are recognized to speak.
Question.
The question has been called. Do I see 5 hands? I do. The question is, shall debate cease? Although there's been a request for a call of the House. The question is, shall the House go under call? All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. Record, Mr. Clerk.
8 ayes, 17 nays to go under call, Mr. President.
The House is not under call. There's a request for a roll call vote. The motion and the issue is the motion to reconsider. Excuse me, to cease debate. To cease debate. Mr. Clerk.
Senator Albright Voting yes, Senator Arch. Not voting, Senator Armendariz. Voting yes, Senator Ballard. Voting yes, Senator Blood. Not voting, Senator Bosson. Senator Bostar. Senator Bostelman. Voting yes, Senator Brandt. Voting yes, Senator Brewer. Voting yes, Senator Breezy. Voting yes, Senator John Kavanaugh. Voting no, Senator Michaela Kavanaugh. Voting no, Senator Clements. Voting yes, Senator Conrad. Voting yes, Senator Day. Excuse me, Senator. Voting no, Senator Day. Senator DeBoer. Not voting, Senator Decay. Voting yes, Senator Dorn. Voting yes, Senator Dover. Senator Duncan. Senator Erdman. Voting yes, Senator Frederickson. Senator Halloran. Voting yes, Senator Hansen. Voting yes, Senator Hardin. Voting yes, Senator Holdcroft. Voting yes, Senator Hughes. Senator Hunt. Voting no, Senator Ibach. Voting yes, Senator Jacobson. Voting yes, Senator Kauth. Voting yes, Senator Linehan. Voting yes, Senator Lippincott. Voting yes, Senator Lowe. Voting yes, Senator McDonald. Voting yes, Senator McKinney. Senator Moser. Voting yes, Senator Merman. Voting yes, Senator Raybold. Not voting, Senator Reapy. Voting yes, Senator Sanders. Voting yes, Senator Slama. Voting yes, Senator Vargas. Senator Von Gillern. Voting yes, Senator Walls. Senator Wayne. Senator Wishart. Voting aye, Senators Albright, Armendariz, Ballard, Bostelman, Brandt, Brewer, Breezy, Clements, Decay, Dorn, Erdman, Halloran, Hansen, Hardin, Holdcroft, Ibach, Jacobson, Kauth, Linehan, Lippincott, Lowe, McDonald, Moser, Merman, Reapy, Sanders, Slama, and Von Gillern. Voting nay, Senator John Kavanaugh, Michaela Kavanaugh, Conrad, Hunt. Not voting, Senators Arch, Blood, DeBoer, and Raybold. Absent, not voting, Senator Bostar, Dover, Duncan, Frederickson, Vargas, and Wishart. Excused, Senator Aguilar, Boston, Day, Hughes, McKinney, and Walls, and Wayne. Vote is 28 ayes, 4 nays, Mr. President.
Debate does cease. Senator Michaela Kavanaugh, you are recognized to close.
Thank you, Mr. President. I asked for a record vote because I want a record. Last week, I was told that we were going to negotiate in good faith on LB 574. And to attempt to show good faith in engaging in negotiations on LB 574, I responded to Senator Kauth's request that was sent to the legislature. I have tried to moderate my tone today. I have tried to give an opportunity for people to engage in those negotiations. I am not at the table, nor do I want to be, but I have been making attempts and strides to show my good faith effort for changing the tone of this legislature. The repeated calls of the House are one person's choice. The voting for the repeated calls of the House is the body's choice. You are not showing me good faith. Repeatedly voting down calls of the House and repeatedly voting for calling the question is not good faith. It does not build goodwill. It does not build trust, partnership. And I wanted a record of who is participating in it so that When your bills are on the agenda, when you come to me and want to get to the amendments on your bills on the agenda, I will look at that vote. And I will see if you have entered into good faith negotiations, and I will act accordingly. You do have to build trust with people. And you might not like it, but you probably should try and build some trust and some goodwill with me. I was trying to build trust and goodwill with all of you. And lo and behold, shocking, definitely not to me, you squandered it. You squandered it. I was genuinely thinking about not taking this bill to cloture tonight so that we could stick with the schedule and go to the next bill on the agenda at 7:30. I was genuinely like, you know what? Let's just get to the next bill on the agenda at 7:30, because why should we have to keep coming back to this bill for 20 minutes here and there? We'll just get to a vote like 7:15, 7:20, then we'll move on to the next bill on final reading at 7:30. But I keep giving goodwill gestures, and I'm not getting any goodwill gestures in return. How much time do I have, Mr. President?
1 minute, 35 seconds.
Great. I'm tired. And you know what? Can I even do a second call of the House? Have we moved on from the last thing? Is that permissible or not permissible? Yeah, great. Call the House, roll call vote, if you please. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Kavanaugh. There's a request to place the House under call. The question is, shall the House go under call? All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. Record, Mr. Clerk.
9 nays, 14 nays to go under call, Mr. President.
The House is not under call. The question is the motion to reconsider. There's been a request for a roll call vote. Mr. Clerk.
Senator Aguilar, Senator Albright. Voting no, Senator Arch. Voting no, Senator Armendariz. Voting no, Senator Ballard. Voting no, Senator Blood. Voting no, Senator Bosson. Voting no, Senator Bostar. Senator Bostoman. Voting no, Senator Brandt. Voting no, Senator Brewer. Voting no, Senator Breezy. Voting no, Senator John Kavanaugh. Voting no, Senator Michaela Kavanaugh. Not voting, Senator Clements. Voting no, Senator Conrad. Voting no, Senator Day. Senator DeBoer. Voting no, Senator DeKay. Voting no, Senator Dorn. Voting no, Senator Dover. Voting no, Senator Duncan. Senator Erdman. Voting no, Senator Frederickson. Voting no, Senator Halloran. Voting no, Senator Hansen. Voting no, Senator Hardin. Voting no, Senator Holdcroft. Voting no, Senator Hughes. Senator Hunt. Voting yes, Senator Ibach. Voting no, Senator Jacobson. Voting no, Senator Kauth. Voting no, Senator Linehan. Voting no, Senator Lippincott. Voting no, Senator Lowe. Voting no, Senator McDonald. Voting no, Senator McKinney. Senator Moser. Voting no, Senator Merman. Voting no, Senator Raybold. Senator Reapy. Voting no, Senator Sanders. Voting no, Senator Slama. Voting no, Senator Vargas. Voting no, Senator Von Gellern. Voting no, Senator Walls. Senator Wayne. Senator Wishart.
And then make poster.
37 nays, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. The motion to reconsider fails. Mr. Clerk, for items.
Mr. President, next motion, Senator Michaela Cavanaugh would move to amend with AMFA 54.
Senator Kavanaugh, you're recognized to open on your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. So cloture is at 8:10, which means we have an hour and 25 minutes left. I have this floor amendment, and then I have motion to reconsider after this. So this will be at least my 10 minutes now. I'm 5 minutes and my 5 minutes to close. So that's 20 minutes. Something similar on the next one, that's 40 minutes. And then I have another floor amendment and another floor amendment. So that's another 40-ish minutes, where the more we call the question, the more you all are called back to your seats to vote against call of the House. Yeah. And then, so that's 40 minutes and 40 minutes. So that's 80 minutes, which an hour and 25 minutes is 85 minutes. So I guess that'll take us to cloture-ish. I'm probably going to stop asking for roll call votes on every vote because that's just tedious for some people. And I honestly mostly do it when the call of the House fails because I think it's kind of rude to not do a call of the House for your colleagues who you know are about to have to vote. And so that's why I do the roll call vote when the call of the House fails specifically, but that's fine. Okay, so FA 54. Let's see what I got cooking on this one. Strike section 2. Great. Wonder what's in section 2. This is, let's go back to the main page. Strike section 1. Well, that's what we did the last time. Okay. Section 2 is section 50-114, revised statutes, reissue revised statutes of Nebraska is amended to read 50-114. 1, it shall be the duty of the clerk of the legislature to attend the sessions of the legislature, to call the roll, to read the journals, bills, memorials, resolutions, petitions, and all other papers or documents necessary to be read in the legislature, to keep a correct journal of the proceedings in the legislature, and to do and perform such duties as may be imposed upon by the clerk. This does have a change. It makes it gender neutral. What? No! Tom Brewer, you sneaky trickster there with your equality and whatnot. It strikes him, implying that the clerk of the legislature must be a man, and puts in the gender neutral term, the clerk. Bravo, Senator Brewer. Look at that. So progressive. By the legislature or the executive board of the legislative council. I don't believe this actually strikes the clerk's duties from the statute. It just strikes it from the bill and it continues to go on. And this is the new part that if you were to vote for this, which would be stricken. So I'm sorry, clerk, you're still going to have those other duties. It'll just also say him. So job security, Not sure. Okay, so the new part of section 2 is the records of floor debate and committee hearings as prepared and permanently maintained by the clerk of the legislature are the official records of the legislature. Any government website offering access to audio and video recordings of the proceedings of the legislature or of a committee or division of the legislature shall require notification to any website user using appropriate technology such that such recordings shall not be used, reproduced, or redistributed without express permission by the Legislative Council and in accordance with the policies developed by the Executive Board of the Legislature pursuant to Section 1 of this Act. Probably not a good part of the bill to strike. Not just for creating a more gender neutral term to describe the clerk of the legislature, but also it is the part of the bill that is directing us to actually create a policy around what we are attempting to do. So I would recommend not voting for this floor amendment, though I'm sure legal counsel for the committee would really appreciate the challenge of a bill that only tells you halfway how to do it. Yeah, okay. So the thing that is even more fascinating to me here is the fact that it is 2023 and we still have in statute that referencing the clerk of the legislature as him. And I do understand that the clerk of the legislature, I think, has always been a man, but like the fact that it's explicitly in statute to be him. So I appreciate that attention to detail and clarification for it to be the clerk. Though I should say, I have not asked people their pronouns, so I don't want to speak out of turn. But it's good to have it be gender neutral to say the clerk by the legislature or by the executive board of the Legislative Council. Okay, so that's what this amendment does. And I wouldn't recommend voting for it. And when I go and do a motion to recommit, I wouldn't recommend voting for that either. So, okay, how much time do I have, Mr. President?
3 minutes, 9 seconds.
Great. Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate the level of detail in telling me the time down to the 9 seconds. Okay, so going back to my TANF conversation from earlier. I've talked about today that there are several TANF bills that we could be moving forward. And the bill from this morning, LB 227, was that this morning? Wow, that feels like it was a while ago. LB 227, not to be confused with the TV show called 227. LB 227 is the HHS committee priority package, and it actually has in it a child care subsidy bill from HHS. So it would make perfect sense to amend the TANF rainy day fund bills into 227 on select file. That way we can help families in the most economic need. Wouldn't that be fantastic? Wouldn't it be nice to do something good for the people of Nebraska? Okay, so 131 million TANF rainy day fund balance could boost ADC benefits. LB 290, ADC eligibility and benefits increase. Summary. In Nebraska, direct cash assistance program funded by the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, TANF, block grant is known as Aid to Dependent Children, ADC. Nebraska receives $56.6 million every year in the TANF block grant and has not spent the full amount of that grant since 2017.
1 minute.
Thank you. We have underspent our TANF block grant by approximately $10 million for the past 5 years, resulting in a TANF rainy day fund balance of $131 million. These funds can only be spent on TANF purposes and should be invested in children and families that need them. In spite of this immense reserve earmarked for low-income families with children, the income eligibility limit for the ADC program is incredibly low. Incredibly low. And the benefit amounts are shockingly small. A household of 3 would have to have a monthly gross income of less than $881 to be eligible for ADC benefits and could only receive up to $485 per month. Families cannot make ends meet at these levels, especially as inflation has impacted the cost of everyday goods and services. LB 290 would invest.
That's your time, Senator, and you're next in the queue.
Thank you. LB 290 would invest the TANF Rainy Day Fund in children and families at a time where every dollar counts. LB 290 could be implemented without the use of general funds for approximately 2 years by using the $130 million TANF Reserve Fund and the FY 2023 and FY 2024 TANF Block Grant Funds. ADC eligibility limit and benefit increase under LB 290. LB 290 would increase the eligibility limit and benefit amount for ADC by increasing the ADC standard of need to better reflect the monthly amount necessary for basic subsistence. Sorry, that is hard. That's got a lot of S's, isn't it? Subsistences. The bill would also require the Nebraska Department of Health and Human Services, DHHS, to adjust the standard of need every year instead of every 2 years. The current standard of need is $601 for one individual, plus an additional $140 for each additional member of the household. LB 290 would increase the standard of need of the household from $881 to $1,919 and would increase the maximum payment for the household of 3 from $485 to $1,055. For comparison, Nebraska's maximum monthly benefit for a household of 3 was $364 in 1996. If benefit levels had kept pace with inflation, with no benefit increase over time, a number household would be eligible for $687 per month. This would better reflect the monthly amount necessary for basic subsistence, at least as measured by the federal poverty guidelines known as the Federal Poverty Level, FPL. In 2022, 100% FPL for a household of 3 was $1,919, plus an additional $339 for each additional member of the household, with a maximum benefit level at approximately 25% FPL. Nebraska is one of 17 states where TANF-funded benefits still leave families below 29% of the federal poverty line. With the changes proposed by LB 290, Nebraska would join 7 other states with TANF-funded benefit levels in the 40 to 60% FPL range. I'm going to pause for a minute. So, if we increased the eligibility amount, basically saying you can make more money than almost no money at all to get direct cash assistance from the TANF fund. If we were to increase that eligibility, those getting the benefits would still likely be at the poverty level. not at the eligibility for childcare subsidy or SNAP, which is 165 to 185, depending on which program you're talking about. They would still be well below qualifying for those programs. Well below.
1 minute.
It's just that they would qualify for this program and those programs and still be in poverty and still have poverty be a full-time job that is exhausting and demoralizing and exhausting yet again. And don't we want to help people get out of poverty? I would love to help people get out of poverty. Increasing eligibility is a step in a good direction to make it possible for individuals living in poverty to get the ground underneath them so that they can get some financial stability, so that they can get out of poverty. But without financial stability, which we are not giving them through this program currently, they will not get out of poverty. So.
That's your time, Senator.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Kavanaugh. Senator Hunt, you're recognized to speak.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll yield my time to Senator Michaela Kavanaugh.
Senator Kavanaugh, that's 4 minutes, 54 seconds.
Thank you, Senator Hunt. Okay, so, yeah, poverty. Isn't that just a gas? Poverty? No, I'm kidding. It's not. It's not a gas. It's terrible. And we should be doing more, and we can be doing more. We absolutely can be doing more to address poverty in Nebraska. We can be doing more to help those in economic crisis. We could be maintaining SNAP eligibility at the current 165%. For some reason, we aren't able to find the $700,000 a year that it would take to do that in our appropriations budget. Something that completely flummoxes me, that out of all the money that we have in this state, all the things that are going to come out of that appropriations package, SNAP at 165% is not going to be one of them. Why, you might ask? I have no idea. It's a moral document. I'd like to see the morals of it. I'd like to see the morals of the appropriations document to reflect that we are in an economic crisis for working poor families, that they cannot afford gas to get to their jobs, to get their kids to school, that they cannot afford groceries, that they cannot afford the essential goods and needs to take care of their family. I would love to know how we can have an obscene excess of riches as a state, but we can't find $700,000 to maintain the current eligibility for SNAP at 165%. 165%, by the way, is still not what the eligibility was before our last economic crisis. When we cut things, when we cut our budgets, we cut our SNAP eligibility to make up so that we wouldn't have a deficit. We still aren't back at the 185% that we were back then. And now we're going to go back to 130% because we can't find $700,000 a year to maintain the 165% SNAP eligibility in our budget. Literally, $700,000 should be seat cushion money in the state budget, but we can't find money to give 10,000 Nebraskans access to food. And in addition to not being able to give 10,000 Nebraskans access to food, those that fall in the eligibility, because they'll be at 130% poverty, with that 130%, we have to go all the way down to 48% poverty to be eligible for TANF. But I'm sure all of these individuals and all of these families will really appreciate all of the programs that will be created out of all of the excess funds, all of the programs that will be created that don't feed their families, that don't help them pay for rent, that don't help them pay for utilities, that don't help them pay for gas, that don't help them just get the bare necessities and get the ground underneath them to be stable, I'm sure they will appreciate the programs that this body is willing to create in lieu of helping them feed their own children. I'm sure that they will feel really terrific about that.
1 minute.
Those programs will be so appreciated over any economic assistance that we could provide to directly impact them immediately. So I look forward to poring over the budget when it comes out of committee to see how we possibly could not afford $700,000 a year for SNAP eligibility. I very much look forward to seeing what it is that we are investing our monies in. It even seems like you could cut corners on a lake or a canal, or a lake and a canal, or a lake and a canal and a million other things. You probably could cut $10,000 from a whole bunch of things here and there and find the money. It's the will. We have to have the will to take care of our citizens. We have
That's
to
your
have the
time,
will.
Senator.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Kavanaugh. Senator Erdman, you're recognized to speak.
Question.
The question has been called. Do I see 5 hands? I do. The question is, shall debate cease? There's been a request for a call of the House. The question is, shall the House go under call? All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. Record, Mr. Clerk.
6 ayes, 11 nays to go under call, Mr. President.
The House is not under call. The question is, shall debate cease? All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. Record, Mr. Clerk.
23 ayes, 2 nays, Mr. President.
Debate does not cease. The next speaker is Senator Kavanaugh. Michaela Kavanaugh, you're recognized to speak.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to move on from SNAP and go back to TANF. Okay, so in addition to, I was reading about LB 290, or no, was I reading about 290? Was I reading about 310? I was reading about 290. Let's look at 310. And, okay. Maybe that was that my, yeah, you'll let me know when on my next turn. Okay, so 310, ADC maximum benefit improvements to address inflation in Nebraska, the direct cash assistance program funded by the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, TANF block grant, is known as Aid to Dependent Children, ADC. Nebraska receives $56.6 million every year in the TANF block grant and has not spent the full amount of that grant since 2017. We have underspent our TANF block grant by approximately $10 million for the past 5 years, resulting in a TANF rainy day fund balance of over $131 million. These funds can only be spent on TANF purposes and should be invested in children and families that need them. In spite of this immense reserve earmarked for low-income families with children, the income eligibility limit for the ADC program is incredibly low, and the benefit amounts are shockingly small. A household with 3 would have to have a monthly gross income of less than $881 to be eligible for ADC benefits and could only receive up to $485 per month. Families cannot make ends meet at these levels, especially as inflation has impacted the cost of everything, everyday goods and services. LB 310 would invest the TANF rainy day fund in children and families at a time where every dollar counts. LB 310 could be implemented without the use of general funds by spending down the 130 million TANF reserve funds and relying on annual TANF block grant funds thereafter. ADC benefit improvements under LB 310. LB 310 would make a modest increase to ADC benefits by adjusting the maximum benefit amount from 55% of the standard of need to 85% of the standard of need. The current standard of need is $601 for one individual, plus an additional $140 for each additional member of the household. LB 310 would not change the standard of need and therefore would not increase the ADC eligibility limit. LB 310 would increase the maximum payment for a household of 3 from $485 to $749. For comparison, Nebraska's maximum monthly benefit for a household of 3 was $364 in 1996. If benefit levels had kept pace with inflation, with no benefit increases over time, a household of 3 would be eligible for $687 per month. Okay. Okay, proposed changes in standard of need and maximum payment of other household sizes. And how much time do I have, Mr. President?
A minute 8.
Okay, so this is a chart, proposed changes in standard of need and maximum payment for other household sizes. It has the number of individuals in the family unit, and then the per additional cost per person, current standard of need, and then it's the current max payment, and then LB 310 proposed payment, 85%. So family of 3 right now, its max payment is $485. This would bring it up to $749. Or my family of 5, current payment is $639, and this would be bringing it up to $987. So that would be very helpful to a lot of families. This would better reflect the monthly amount necessary for.
That's your time, Senator Kavanaugh, and that was your last time before your close. Senator Hunt, you're recognized to speak.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll yield my time to Senator Kavanaugh.
Senator Kavanaugh, that's 4 minutes, 54 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator Hunt. Okay, so I'll get myself out of the queue, since that would just be my closing. All right. Where was I? Standard of need. Okay. So this would better reflect the monthly amount necessary for basic subsistence, at least as measured by the federal poverty guidelines, known as the federal poverty level, FPL. I feel like by the end of this, and maybe not even by the end of this, a lot of times when people are watching the legislature, they'll be like playing legislature bingo. And probably a lot of people are watching this that followed 254 because they all sent in their letters and et cetera. And if I were making a bingo card for today, it would be ADC would be one of the bingos, FPL would be a bingo, TANF would be a bingo. What else would be one? Then a bunch of percentage points probably. But you'd be in the know. It'd be like 185%. You'd be like, yeah, that's child care subsidy eligibility. That's a bingo card. 165% current SNAP eligibility. Bingo. 130%. What SNAP eligibility will go back to if we don't take action this year? Bingo. So It would be a very nerdy bingo card if I made a bingo card on today, but but I would think it was fun. Okay, so LB 310 would ensure that Nebraska continues to spend a significant portion of TANF funds on direct cash assistance, instead of diverting those funds to other purposes with less direct benefit to families struggling to make ends meet. In 2020, Nebraska spent around 27% of our TANF funds on basic assistance, which is higher than the national average of 22%. This is a positive aspect of Nebraska's TANF program that should be protected and expanded. Look at that, something positive about our program. Who knew? Example, consider a single parent with one child who has no earned income and receives a child care subsidy. The following table provides an overview of the impact LB 310 would have on that household. Compare net income to SON, standard of need. I guess SON could also be a bingo. I haven't said it that much. I've said actual standard of need. I haven't said SON or SUN. For unit size to determine eligibility. Current SUN is $741. Current SUN in 310, no change, $741. I'm going to skip down to funding. As noted above, Nebraska receives $56.6 million every year in the TANF block grant and has not spent the full amount of that grant since FY. It says FFY. Is that fiscal? No, what is the second F for? FFY. Maybe it's a
1 minute.
but I've seen it a few different places, FFY. Anyways, 2017. In fact, Nebraska has underspent the TANF block grant by approximately $10 million for the past 5 years, resulting in a TANF rainy day fund balance of over $131 million. The changes proposed by LB 310 could be implemented without the use of general funds by spending down the $130 million TANF reserve fund and relying on annual TANF block grant funds thereafter. TANF in Nebraska. I think I'm about out of time, so I'll save it for my next time, which is maybe my close. I'm not really sure. But I will be talking about TANF in Nebraska.
That's your time,
Thank
Senator.
you.
Thank you, Senator Kavanaugh. Senator Hunt, you're recognized to speak.
Thank you.
This is your third time.
Thank you. I'll yield my time to Senator Michaela Kavanaugh.
Senator Kavanaugh, you have 4 minutes, 55 seconds.
Thank you. I know Senator Hunt was dying to know about TANF in Nebraska. ADC eligibility is determined by calculating a household's gross income, then subtracting a 20% earned income disregard and any out-of-pocket childcare expenses. If the resulting net earned, somebody just texted me, FFY, federal fiscal year, question mark? That sounds appropriate. I don't know. Thank you to those watching. 2 people texted it to me. All right. Well, we've got a quorum in my text messages. Federal fiscal year is what we're going with FFY. I love how much people are watching at home that they are texting me answers to things that I am pondering out loud on the microphone. That actually tickles me, especially when we're debating LB 254 about people wanting to be able to watch the legislature. I mean, who doesn't want archived footage of today's TANF conversation? Probably no one. But maybe someday someone will be like, you know what I want to do a deep dive on? I want to do a deep dive on Nebraska's TANF in 2023 as read by Senator Michaela Kavanaugh. And I'm probably misstating a few things. So if somebody in the future is watching this, please fact check me. Okay. TANF in Nebraska. ADC eligibility is determined by calculating a household's gross income, then subtracting a 20% earned income disregard and any out-of-pocket childcare expenses. If the resulting net earned income is less than the standard of need, the household is eligible for ADC benefits. ADC benefits are determined by subtracting the net income from the standard of need. The maximum benefit amount is 55% of the standard of need. Most ADC recipients are required to meet stringent work requirements to continue receiving benefits. ADC recipients who are subject to the work requirements can only receive ADC benefits for a total of 60 months in a lifetime. So again, this is not a program that is meant to be permanent. It is a maximum of 60 months. You cannot receive cash assistance over a lifetime of more than 5 years. And for anyone who has children at any age, I'm sure you know that children are expensive, and 5 years they're expensive for more than 5 years of their lifetime. This is not a permanent program. You can only be a part of it for 5 years. There are significant work requirements or stringent education requirements. It is not an easy program, and it's even harder by the fact that we make it almost impossible to be eligible. So, I'm going to go on, but before I do, this TANF in Nebraska, the part that I just read, that paragraph, reminds me of high school math. So I'm like wishing that I had a whiteboard right behind me, because as I'm reading this, I'm like, I want to like diagram out this math problem, because it's like subtracting a 20% earned income, out-of-pocket childcare expenses,
1 minute.
net income less than the standard of need, household is eligible for ADC benefits. Like, how do you even figure out if you're eligible? First of all, you have to know what all of those things are. You have to know the definitions of them, but then you have to know the definitions of them as they apply to your actual life. Again, we don't make this easy. We make it really difficult for people in poverty to exist. Be great if we at least gave them a little bit more cash assistance, because frankly, if we're not doing that, what are we doing? Next is myths and stereotypes. I think I'm coming up on my closing, so I will save it for that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thanks, Senator Kavanaugh, and you are recognized for your closing on the floor amendment.
Fantastic. All right. I think I need to write out a motion to reconsider still for this floor amendment, so we'll be doing that next. All right. Myths and I did. One of the people that texted me about the federal fiscal year, also just colleagues, I'm going to read this little quote into the record is, I believe temporary relief for Nebraska children is pro-life. It's certainly pro-family. Thank you for that. Myths and stereotypes. Harmful stereotypes about ADC recipients in Nebraska mirror the harmful stereotypes and myths about recipients of other public assistance programs in Nebraska and across the country. In particular, much of the debate around the 1996 federal law that created TANF was centered on myths about Black mothers who were portrayed as needing a, quote, stick, end quote, to compel them to be more responsible and stop using public assistance. Yeah, that's a terrible myth. These harmful stereotypes are not rooted in facts or reality. Research has shown that public assistance recipients spend most of their benefits on basic necessities, including food, housing, and transportation costs. Yep, Okay, so summary. LB 290, this bill would increase the eligibility limit and benefit amount for ADC, or age to dependent children, by increasing the ADC standard of need to better reflect the monthly amount necessary for basic subsistence. That word is tripping me up every time. So many S's in it. The amount of the proposed standard of need change is based on the 2022 federal poverty level. The bill would also require the Nebraska Department of Health and Human Services, DHHS, to adjust the standard of need every year instead of every 2 years. Okay. LB 310 summary. This bill would make a modest increase to aid to dependent children benefits by adjusting the maximum benefit amount from 55% of the standard of need to 85% of the standard of need. Definitions. TANF, or Temporary Assistance to Needy Families, a federal block grant created through the Personal Responsibility and Work Opportunity Reconciliation Act, or PRWORA, of 1996. TANF replaced Aid to Families with Dependent Children, or AFDC, which provided cash assistance to families with children experiencing poverty. Nebraska's TANF grant award is $56.6 million each year. ADC, or Aid to Dependent Children, Nebraska's direct cash assistance program funded by the TANF block grant. This type of income support can help families in poverty maintain stability.
1 minute.
Promote children's healthy development. DHHS expenditures on ADC in FY21, or federal fiscal year, is $15.5 million. Standard of need, or SUN, the initial income test in ADC. If a household's net earned income is lower than the standard of need for their household size, then the household is eligible for ADC benefits. The standard of need is supposed to represent the monthly combined costs of food, clothing, sundries, home supplies, utilities, laundry, and shelter, including taxes and insurance. The current standard of need is $601 for one individual, plus $140 for each additional member of the household.
That's your time, Senator.
Thank you. Call of the House.
Thank you, Senator. There's been a request to place the House under call. The question is, shall the House go under call? All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. Record, Mr. Clerk.
12 ayes, 11 nays, place House under call.
House is under call. Senators, please record your presence. Those unexcused senators outside the chamber, please return to the chamber and record your presence. All unauthorized personnel, please leave the floor. The House is under call. Senators Decay, Wishart, Slama, Bostar, Hunt, and Hanson, please return to the chamber and record your presence. The House is under call. All unexcused senators are present. The question is the adoption of FA 54. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. Record, Mr. Clerk.
0 ayes, 36 nays, Mr. President, on adoption of FA 54.
The amendment fails and is not adopted. I raise the call, and Mr. Clerk for items.
Mr. President, some items quickly. Amendments to be printed from Senator Reapy to LB 191. Concerning LB 254, the next item, Mr. President, Senator Dorn would move to amend with AM 1377.
Senator Dorn, you are recognized to open on your amendment.
Thank you and good evening, colleagues. This is, the original bill was LB 90, which is the performance audit priority bill this year, which all it does is it removes a couple things. It basically is with the language in there. We've always, every 5 years, they've done a performance audit on the Advantage Act, Well, the Advantage Act is still going on, but we do not need to know how it's performing or whatever, because there are no new applications being taken. So that is the one thing they wanted to remove out of there. And the other one is, it does have in it to remove the Nebraska Job Creation and Main Street Revitalization Act, because that was supposed to sunset. Now we may have to bring that back or may not, because there is a bill out there this year on the floor somewhere what brings that maybe back in. If that bill passes, then next year we'll be back to bring this back or whatever. But all this does is removing two things that basically the performance audit won't be doing anymore. So that's why I visited with Senator Brewer, with Senator Kavanaugh, and we were able to, and Trevor with the executive board and Senator Breezy earlier about this, if we could put this on here and then vote on this to have, instead of having that priority bill sitting out there yet, have it on this bill here. So that's what this bill is up there for, amendment's up there for.
Thank you, Senator Dorn. Senator Michaela Kavanaugh, you're recognized to speak.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator Dorn. This bill has actually had a little bit of a journey. I believe it was initially introduced by Senator Day, and then Senator Dorn put his name on as the new chair of the performance audit, and then Senator Day allowed the bill to be reassigned to Senator Dorn, and then it became our performance audit bill. And Senator Dorn just spoke with me about the fact that he was trying to get it attached to this bill before we got it to cloture. And look at that. Look at that. When we work together, things can happen. So I am not going to take any more time on this particular amendment. I'm on the committee. I appreciate the work of our committee members and of Senator Dorn. And so with that, I will just be voting green for this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Kavanaugh. Senator Hunt, you are recognized out of the queue. Senator Clemens, you are recognized to speak.
Thank you, Mr. President. I support this amendment from Senator Dorn. It does remove the Advantage Act from the performance audit having to be done so that we can focus the performance audit group on some other items that need to be looked at. The Advantage Act is no longer in place and is just running off whatever people have earned. And we do get reports anyway from the Department of Revenue that tells us how much has been spent. So I support the amendment. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Clemens. Senator Dorn, you're recognized to speak.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Bosselman just brought over to me the amendment, and it showed a bunch of other codes in there that were crossed out also. And visiting with Trevor, that those are codes that are all old codes that needed to be removed also. So this is an up-to-date amendment for the Performance Audit Committee, and this is where we'll need to be going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Dorn. Senator Conrad, you are recognized to speak.
Thank you, Mr. President, and happy to just ask my questions on the record or ask Senator Dorn if he'd be willing to yield. But I know members are just trying to get up to speed on kind of the matter that's come before us in regards to the pending measure. And I think we're all very thoughtful about efforts to eliminate duplication or redundancy that may exist, or to remove language that's no longer applicable or relevant in our state statutory framework. But just wanted to triple check, because these tax incentive programs carry such a hefty price tag and have been so significant within the public interest, that we're not removing anything in terms of transparency overall, or an ability for Nebraska citizenry or all stakeholders to be able to make an assessment about whether or not they're a good investment of our taxpayer dollars. So happy to just put that out there and provide an opportunity for Senator Dorn or other members of Performance Audit to respond if they'd be willing to. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator Conrad. Senator Dorn. Dorn, you're recognized to
Yes.
speak.
Thank you, Senator Conrad. You brought up some good points there. This is not redundancy. The Advantage Act, we do not accept any new applications for that anymore. We are in the Imagine Act, what we passed a couple years ago. I think 2 years ago we passed that. So it does not need to have a performance audit. Performance audit is they do the audit and tell us basically how that is performing for the bill that was introduced or for the project that's out there. They come back with a report telling us that it's doing what we intended to do. So we do not need to do that with the Advantage Act because there won't be any more out there doing that. The other one, the Job Creation and Main Street Revitalization Act, that did have a sunset of the end of this year, the end of 23. So part of when this bill was brought forward, if it didn't get extended or renewed, that part of the act, there was also no need to do it. So some of these are, I call it kind of cleanup things, kind of verbiage so that we get them in the right perspective. This is in no way saying that they aren't going to be doing audits yet. They still have multiple things that they will be doing audits on. And we will be sending out here in the near future a request if anybody else has, any senators have any new ones that they would like added that we can then look at and see if they need to be added. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Dorn. There being nobody in the queue, you're recognized to close and waive closing on AM 1377. Members, the question is the adoption of AM 1377. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. Record, Mr. Clerk.
34 ayes, no nays, Mr. President, on adoption of the amendment.
The amendment is adopted. Mr. Clerk, for items.
Mr. President, Senator Michaela Cavanaugh would move to offer FA 55.
Senator Michaela Cavanaugh, you are recognized to open.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. Let's see what this one does. I think we have like 30 minutes left on this bill. I wrote it down somewhere and now I've misplaced where I wrote down. I think we're done with this at 8:10. So we have 28 minutes left on this bill. And this is my last floor amendment, I believe. So I want to see what it is. What is this one to be? Those are all the ones that are considered. And here we go. Strike Executive Board of the Legislative Council and insert legislature. So it's like requiring, instead of the Legislative Council to create the rules and regulations, it would be the whole legislature. And I think we all, the 48 of us, 49 of us, count, I am in the legislature, 49 of us, I think we all could do this together. I don't think we need a smaller subcommittee to do this work. Let's just, all get together and work on rules and regulations around the digital archives of our videos. That should be no problem at all. I think we could do a retreat and spend several days together hashing this out. I think that could be an interesting sine die sketch. The 49 members of the legislature doing rules and regulations. I actually have been workshopping, just saying it. I haven't said it fully to the body, but I have an idea. It's for a buddy comedy but I also think it could be a sine die sketch. And I haven't asked Senator Erdman this yet, but I think I could get him on board. A buddy comedy, it's Senator Michaela Cavanaugh and Steve Erdman, and it's a buddy comedy where we talk about taxes. I mean, who wouldn't want to watch that? It would be a real, like, juicy reality TV show. I'm not sure. But I definitely would be here for it. I don't know about everyone else. So, okay, we are at changing this from the Legislative Council to, or from the Legislative Executive Board of the Legislative Council and changing it to the Legislature. So that is the current amendment at hand, at task. I should probably get in the queue. Okay, and I feel that perhaps, just perhaps, our tutorial, our education on TANF has come to a close for today. I think I have said ADC and TANF and block grant and FPL as many times as humanly possible in one day. So I'm not going to talk about TANF anymore today. That doesn't mean I'm not going to talk about it tomorrow, of course. I am excited about the opportunity that this particular bill, LB 254, has presented us with. We have a very keen interest from the public in LB 254. We have heard a lot of online testimony. I wasn't present for the in-person testimony, but I could see that there were people that came and testified in support of the bill. We have had an amendment of that is creating additional access to any online digital archives that we're going to work on between general and select. So we're building some bridges here with this bill. I just stepped aside so that Senator Dorn could get his amendment on for the Performance Audit Committee, trying to build some more goodwill and bridges here. And now we have this last floor amendment, and we're almost to the end of this bill. And then we go on to final reading. And I realize that we are now past 7:30, but I think we should probably just move on to final reading. So, Mr. President, I would like to withdraw my motion. Thank you.
Floor Amendment 55 is withdrawn. Mr. Clerk.
I have nothing further on the bill, Mr. President.
Members, the question is the adoption. Senator Breezy, you're recognized for the closing on AM 698.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good evening, colleagues. I'll be very brief here, but just to recap what this amendment and this bill are about. First, the amendment requires that the Executive Board develop policies and procedures surrounding both the creation and ongoing usage of the video archive system. Second, the amendment provides that audio and video recordings of proceedings of the legislature are not the official records of legislative proceedings. Third, the amendment provides that audio and video recordings of proceedings of the legislature shall not be used, reproduced, or redistributed without express permission of the legislature and in accordance with policies developed by the Executive Board. This bill had, I think, 30-some letters in support, no letters in opposition. There was no opposition. There was actually one opposition testifier who, upon further questioning, indicated he does support this concept. He supports the bill, but he wanted to see a few more details worked out. And so this amendment, this bill really are about transparency and openness in government, and that's a good thing. And I thank Senator Brewer for bringing this bill, and I'd ask for your support of AM 698. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Breezy. Members, the question is the adoption of AM 698. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. Record, Mr. Clerk.
30 yeas, 0 nays, Mr. President, on adoption of the amendment.
The amendment is adopted. Senator Brewer, you're recognized to close on LB 254 and waives closing on LB 254. Members, the question is the advancement of LB 254 to E&R initial. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. Record, Mr. Clerk.
33 yeas, no nays, Mr. President, on advancement of the bill.
The bill is advanced. Mr. Clerk, for items. Senators will now turn to final reading. Please be in your seats. Members should be in their seats. Mr. Clerk.
Mr. President, Legislative Bill 376E on final reading. First of all, Mr. President, I have a priority motion. Senator Hunt would move to recommit Legislative Bill 376 to committee.
Senator Hunt, you're recognized on the motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Clerk, I'll withdraw that motion and my subsequent motions.
It is withdrawn. Next item, Mr. Clerk.
Senator Hunt, I've got AM 1034 with a note you wish to withdraw. AM 1035 withdrawn as well, Senator. Senator Lowe, I've got AM 851. Senator Lowe. Mr. President, Senator Lowe would move to return to select file for a specific amendment. That Senator Lowe would move to withdraw, Senator Lowe withdraws AM 851. Senator Slama, I have MO 106 with a note to withdraw. Senator Kavanaugh, I've got FA 33. Senator Michaela Kavanaugh. Withdrawn. Senator Michaela Kavanaugh, AM 1056. And 1055, both shown as withdrawn. In that case, Mr. President, the first vote is dispense with the at-large reading.
The first vote is to dispense with the at-large reading. This will take a vote of 30. All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. Record, Mr. Clerk.
48 2 nays, dispense with the at-large reading.
The at-large reading is dispensed with. Mr. Clerk, please read the title.
Engrossed Legislative Bill 376, introduced by Lowe, 37, Bill for Regulating Nebraska Liquor Control, amend sections 53-103, 53-11706, 53-12311, 53-168, revised statutes, Nebraska section 53-101, 53-126, 24-1, 77, revised statute, 5 terms required reports certain license prior. Such of alcohol liquor states pride and for certain license channel pricing and responsive with their advertising agreement, provide the rules and regulations allow owners to allow microdistillers engage in direct sales store offsite facilities, change provisions relating to special designated license, harmonize provisions, appeals to real section declares an emergency.
All provisions of law relative to procedure having been complied with, the question is, shall LB 376E pass with the emergency clause attached? All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote nay. Record, Mr. Clerk.
Voting aye, Senators Albright, Arch, Armandaris, Boston, Bostar, Bostman, Brandt, Brewer, Breezy, Kavanaugh, Clements, Conrad, DeBoer, Decay, Dorn, Dover, Dungan, Urban, Frederickson, Holleran, Hanson, Hardin, Holcroft, Hughes, Ibaugh, Jacobson, Cowell, Linehan, Lippincott, Lowe, McDonald, Mosier, Merman, Raybold, Reapy, Sanders, Slama, Vargas, Von Gillern, Wishart. Not voting Senators Ballard, Hunt, Aguilar, Blood, Day, McKinney, Walls, and Wayne. Vote is 41 ayes, no nays, 2 present not voting, 6 excused not voting, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. LB 376E passes with the emergency clause attached. Mr. Clerk, for items.
Mr. President, name add Senator Vargas to LB 20, Senator Conrad to LB 588, Senator Vargas to LB 617, Senator John Kavanaugh to LB 775. Finally, Mr. President, priority motion, Senator Von Gillern removed to adjourn the body until 9:00 a.m.
You've heard the motion to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. We are adjourned.